Okay, where are we? Proposition 9. The constitutional amendment to protect the right of the public, individually and collectively, to access and use the public beaches bordering the seaward shore of the Gulf of Mexico. Those who are for it say that it would strengthen the Open Beaches Act. It would not change current beach practices, but would rather raise the level of protection for open beaches from any future legislative acts or judicial decisions, and it affirms the access to and use of public beaches as a fundamental right in the Texas Bill of Rights. Those who are opposed basically say that it restricts the right of beach landowners to enjoy their property. It locks into the constitutional law that has been the subject of numerous lawsuits and has allowed the state to force property owners to remove their homes without compensation that end up on the public beach when the vegetation line shifts due to weather events and erosion. So it's a balance between our right as Texans to use the beach against those who own beachfront property when a hurricane pushes the shoreline up into their property.
There's one thing about this is that ingress and egress, if the state-owned beach, and I want to go down there with my grandchildren for them to play in the Gulf and all that, I need to be able to have the right. If you're going to have something out here in the country, for instance, your land is right next to a community center, and there's land between your land and the road, and you go through the community center's parking lot, that is ingress and egress that you have opportunity to get in and out of. And even if these people who own this other property around there, they do have to have ingress and egress. It may be just, 8 feet wide for a car to go down beside the fence row, but it's still, you can do it like that. And this is what this beachfront thing is, that people are buying up the beachfront, and if you want to use any of it, then you have to go down yonder, get you a boat and come around and maybe be able to use it if you can find it that way. But you need ingress and egress no matter where the land falls. They don't sell that, whatever it is, the amount of land.
Any other questions or comments about this amendment?
When you own beach property, does it take your property to the water? I didn't think it. So that's what you're talking about, so that you do have that space in front.
The Texas Open Beaches Act, under this act, the state is authorized to require private property owners whose houses now stand on a public beach because of erosion and storm damage to remove the structures from that land. The proposed amendment would entrench that law in the Texas Constitution, providing that the state, with excessive authority to restrict property owners' rights to enjoy their property, and compounding the problem for those owners by making the law more difficult to change in the future.
Okay, as I understand it, the law right now, if I own a piece of property on the beach, I own up to the natural vegetation line. Now, if it's 100 yards out onto the water, that's public. Public can come and go. But when a hurricane, and then I build a house over here 50 yards, we'll say, back of the vegetation line. What has happened is with the hurricanes, they have come in and changed the shoreline. And these people, it's like you said, right now, it's my understanding right now, that's no longer their land. It is, they don't get, I don't think they even get paid for it. If the hurricane comes in and it moves that vegetation line back underneath my house or 50 yards past my house, that land now belongs to the state of Texas. And that is just not right. We need to do something other, I think, to help these people, especially with the number of hurricanes we have now. And I think if we've got something, something that will protect them, protect their property rights a little bit, I believe that you will see more development along the beaches more commerce, in other words. I think it'd be a good thing.
Well, understand that the current statutory law in Texas is the Texas Open Beach Act. It's already law that requires that if there is erosion past that vegetation line into the property boundary of a beachfront owner, that beachfront owner has to remove property because it becomes public beach. What this constitutional amendment is trying to do is to memorialize that law into the Constitution. Makes it more difficult for those landowners to fight against that.
I thought this law did just the opposite.
No, this law basically makes it in effect constitutionalizes the Texas Open Beaches Act. Basically, folks, puts in the Constitution the law that says if the ocean comes in because of a hurricane and pushes that vegetation line 50 yards into your property and your house happens to be within that 50 yards, you have to remove your house. Any other questions or comments?
I disagree. You need to vote for it because people need to have access to that beach. And the insurance that they buy for hurricanes and floods and all of this other stuff is very, very cheap, and they get their houses blown down and all that, and then the federal government, who puts it behind them, build them all back up again. There's still beach there somewhere along the line, and they will get their houses, if they've been hurt by a hurricane, rebuilt, but there still needs to be ingress and egress into those beaches on the land side. You can't have solid private property. There's got to be access to that, so vote for it.
Any other questions or comments about the proposition number 9? Yes, ma'am.
That's the same thing they do in New Orleans. When we had our house in New Orleans, they told us that there was a thing called wetlands. And if you bought a place or built on what they considered wetland, and it came a humongous flood, hurricane or whatever, and it stayed flooded for more than 3 weeks, you lost your house, property and all. That was it. Same thing.
I think Illinois gives you a little bit more time, but the same thing is true in Illinois. If you build on it's illegal to build on wetlands, and if the wetland changes, you lose your house.
Okay, any other questions or comments about Proposition 9? Okay, number 10. The constitutional amendment to provide that elected members of the governing boards of emergency service districts may serve terms not to exceed 4 years. Those who are for it say authorizing the legislature to increase the maximum term for emergency services district board members from 2 years to 4 years would promote stability and continuity on emergency service district boards and allow board members more time to acquire experience and provide emergency services to their communities. Those who are opposed say that this proposition would diminish public oversight over the members of the governing boards of emergency services districts. Emergency service districts have great power and responsibilities, including the authority to levy taxes. The power to tax should only come with the condition of accountability through direct election by voters every 2 years, just as with members of the State House of Representatives. Voters should be able to exercise the same level of local control over board members of emergency service districts as they currently do with other elected officials.